Welcome back to Sissy Maya. Make sure to subscribe to our channel to never miss an update. Additionally, consider subscribing to my Patreon to get access to these features, and much more. One October day, I went to the zoo with two friends. Joe, a lifelong buddy from my street, and Ryan, a new kid who had moved into the neighborhood that year. I was 16, feeling grown up but still without a driver's license, caught in that awkward stage of adolescence. We spent the day wandering the zoo, chatting and observing the animals. Joe mentioned Halloween was approaching. Ryan chimed in, "I still go trick-or-treating." Joe was surprised. "Really? I haven't done that in over 3 years." "Yep, really," Ryan said. "It's a blast. I go every year, dressed as a girl." I was taken aback. The idea of a boy my age dressing up as a girl seemed unusual, but maybe Ryan had meant he did that when he was younger. I hoped it was a distant memory. I wasn't interested in discussing it further. "We don't do that anymore," I said. "I haven't dressed up in years." "Let's go out this year," Ryan suggested. I stayed silent, but Joe agreed immediately. I assumed this meant we wouldn't be dressing up, especially not as girls. Halloween was 2 weeks away. I went to Ryan's house to meet up with the guys. Ryan's mother, Mrs. Martin, answered the door. "Hello, Maximum. Come in. You need a costume too. I think we can help." "I'm not wearing a costume, Mrs. Martin," I said as I entered. Ryan's sister, Anne, walked into the room. At 17, she was a year ahead of us in school and incredibly beautiful. I had admired her since we first met. I had always thought of myself as just her little brother's friend, someone unworthy of her attention. And was dressed as a witch, but a very attractive one. I was always tongue-tied around her. "Hi, Max," and said, smiling at Mrs. Martin. "Here's another boy who needs a costume." I shook my head, unable to find the words. Just then, another girl entered the room. I didn't know her, but she was pretty. She wore a brown wool jacket and a black silk skirt, not the usual attire for a teenage girl. A familiar voice greeted me, "Hi, Maximum." It was Ryan, but he was dressed as a girl from head to toe. In Mrs. Martin's outfit, complete with a wig, nylons, high heels, and makeup, he was transformed. If I hadn't known it was Ryan, I would never have guessed he was a boy. I gulped. "Ryan, I thought we weren't dressing up." "I told you, I always dress up as a girl for Halloween." "Well, you can if you want, but Joe and I aren't going to do it," I said. And began to giggle and said, "Max, maybe Joe should speak for himself. Come on out, Joe." Suddenly, another girl appeared. I recognized her anxious and nervous face, but it was actually Joe. He was dressed in white stockings, a navy blue wool jumper, a white blouse, and a wig, his face meticulously made up. Joe looked like a very pretty girl. I was stunned. Even beneath the makeup, Joe's face was flushed. "And talked me into it," he said, a broad smile spreading across his face. "Now it's your turn, Maximum." "Oh no," I exclaimed. "Yes," and said, "I have just the dress for you." I turned to Anne, my disbelief evident on my face. I stammered, "I'm not dressing up as a girl." Mrs. Martin chimed in, "Max, it's just for fun," and approached me and took my hand. "Max, I'd really like it if you joined us tonight. I'd love to help with your costume too." "Wait, and was coming with us?" "No, I just couldn't," I said, my eyes starting to well up. Didn't really mean she'd come out with us. My friends began to pressure me, asking why I was so afraid and calling me a coward. Joe clucked like a chicken, and Ryan called me a baby. I hesitated, and then saw her chance. She took both my hands. "Tell you what, Maximum. Let me fix up your costume. Just you and me in my room. If you don't like how you look, you can change back into your own clothes, and no one will see you." I was starting to lose the battle. "Well, I don't know. Please, Maximum. I won't leave your house, okay?" Anne's face lit up. "Of course." She led me to her room, pulled out a dress from her closet, and held it up. "This was my prom dress from last year. Do you like it?" I imagined, and in the dress. Yes," I murmured. It was a beautiful rayon and silk over burgundy velvet, with a black taffeta skirt and short sleeves. It must have looked stunning on her. Realizing she wanted me to wear it, I was taken aback and laughed at my hesitation. "To start, you'll need to take off your pants." My face turned red, but I unbuttoned my jeans and pulled them down. I also removed my shirt and reached for her dress. "What are you doing?" and asked. I was confused. "Don't I need to put it on?" "Yes, but it's not that simple. You'll need stockings and a bra too." My face reddened further, but Anne remained calm. She walked to her bureau, opened a drawer, and rummaged through it. "Catch," she said, tossing some black lacy silk panties my way. "Put these on." I hesitated. "Max, put them on." "But they're panties," I said, my voice trembling. "Of course they're panties, silly. You can't wear my dress over your regular underwear," Anne said. She glanced at my legs. "Good, they're not too hairy, so you won't need to shave them like Ryan and Joe did. Now put on the panties. I'll turn around. Let me know when you're done." I thought, what am I doing? Slowly, I removed my underwear and nervously stepped into Anne's delicate panties. And then handed me sheer black pantyhose. I stood there, unsure what to do next. "Put them on, Maximum." "I'll help," Anne said, taking the pantyhose back. She carefully rolled up the right leg, just like I had seen my mom do. "Sit down, Maximum. You need to be seated to put on stockings." She worked the hose onto my right foot, then rolled up the left leg, gently enveloping my legs. She asked me to stand and carefully pulled the stockings up around my waist. "Now, watch what I do," she instructed, and lifted her skirt and adjusted her own stockings, smoothing them with her hands. I mimicked her actions. "How do they feel, Max?" "What do you mean? Do they fit?" I wasn't sure. I had never worn stockings before. As I took a few steps, I felt the cool air on my legs and the pleasant sensation of the fabric brushing against my skin. "They're okay." Anne laughed and handed me a bra. I extended my arms, and she slid it on, fastening the clasps. She added shoulder pads to create a bust line. There was a knock on the door. Ryan and Joe were outside. "Don't let them in," I pleaded, my face turning red. "Not yet." Anne smiled and called out, "You girls stay out. You'll have to wait." She then handed me a black silk slip. I put it on by myself, enjoying the luxurious feeling of the silk against my legs. And guided me to her vanity, instructing me to sit as a girl would, with my legs together and smoothing out my slip. I followed her directions, savoring the feeling of the silk as I crossed my legs, and began applying makeup to my face. I squirmed, nervously wondering how I would look as unfamiliar scents of foundation and lipstick filled the air. When she finally told me to look in the mirror, I was stunned. I definitely looked feminine, perhaps even pretty, if only I had longer hair. "Now," and whispered, "it's time to try on the dress." Curious to see the final result, I stood up, eager to try on the dress, and unzipped her beautiful gown and held it up for me to step into. As I eased my arms into the sleeves, she zipped me up. I started toward the mirror, but she stopped me. "Wait, Maximum. You need your wig and shoes." She gently guided me to sit on her bed, reminding me to smooth my skirt, and retrieved a blonde wig and burgundy pumps from her closet. She placed the wig on my head, adjusting and combing it until she was satisfied. "Can you put on these shoes?" she asked. I nodded and crossed my right leg to put on one shoe. The sensation of my legs brushing against each other was delightful. I slipped on the pump and then changed legs to put on the other, and giggled at my clumsy attempts and laughed as I struggled to balance in the heels, eventually falling back onto the bed. "Joe was just like you," she said, helping me to my feet. "And Ryan?" I asked. "Oh, he's used to it," and replied. I was puzzled by her comment but didn't dwell on it. I was more focused on finally seeing myself as a girl. A thrill surged through me as I walked toward the mirror in Anne's elegant clothes. The slip slid smoothly against my legs, and the dress flowed over it. I hadn't realized how pleasant girls' clothing could feel. My next surprise was how I looked. I truly appeared as a girl, no, not just a girl, but a lovely one. "Max, you look fantastic," Anne said with a smile. "Do I? Really?" I asked, peering into the mirror again. "I do look okay, don't I?" "You look fabulous," Anne assured me, placing pearls around my neck. "I'll lend you my favorite earrings and bracelet." I allowed her to accessorize me. Eager to show off, I reached for the door, but Anne laughed and announced, "Get ready for the fabulous Jan." I smiled and took a step forward, but Anne reminded me, "Walk like a girl. More curvy." I nodded and entered the living room. Ryan and Joe were sitting on the sofa, their legs crossed, watching TV with Mrs. Martin as if it were their usual routine. They both looked up at me in stunned silence. "Well," I said. Mrs. Martin broke the silence. "Max, you look amazing." I couldn't guess you weren't a girl." My friends seemed equally astonished. "Not bad, Max," Joe said. "Well," I smiled, "let's do something." And chuckled, "I thought you said you wouldn't leave the house." "Oh, right," I remembered. I was concerned they might think I enjoyed dressing this way. I did enjoy it, but I didn't want to make it obvious. "Well, maybe we could take a short walk," I suggested, trying to sound casual. "Sure," and agreed, "let's go." "Come on, girls." We headed to the door where Anne handed each of us matching purses. I dropped my wallet into mine. As I stepped into the cool night air, I felt a new, pleasant sensation as the chill brushed up my dress. The coldness on my legs was unfamiliar but intriguing. We walked in silence, unsure of where to go or what to do. The only sound was the click of our heels on the pavement. Finally, Anne said, "Girls, we'll head to the school Halloween dance, but first, we'll stop by your houses so your parents can see how lovely their daughters look." I swallowed hard, imagining my mom opening the door and seeing me all dressed up. Despite my nerves, a new confidence was building inside me. It would be quite a sight. "Okay, let's go to my house first," I said. We walked to my street. I felt a bit awkward in the high heels, but the sensations of the women's clothing were tantalizing. The breeze made my skirt flutter and the fabric slipped over my legs. Nervous, I climbed the front steps and rang the doorbell. As the door opened, I saw my mom and my sister Sophie. Sophie was dressed as a fairy princess. I felt a wave of fear and tried to hide behind Anne as they came into view. "Trick or treat," we called out. Mom and Sophie looked at us in surprise. Mom handed candy to Anne and asked, "Here's some candy for the pretty witch. But why aren't the rest of you in costumes?" Sophie giggled and said, "Mom, it's Max, and Ryan and Joe." Mom blinked in disbelief and said, "Max?" "Yes, Mom," I answered softly, and burst into laughter, and a broad smile spread across Mom's face. "Max, you look gorgeous. Who would have thought you could look so pretty?" She put her arm around Sophie's shoulder. "I have two lovely girls." She then turned to Ryan and Joe and added, "You boys look great too." Turning to Anne, she asked, "And who might you be?" And laughed, "I'm Ryan's sister, and I'm a real girl." Mom chuckled and said, "Well, you're adorable too, and..." She then called my dad to come take a look. Though Dad wasn't as enthusiastic about our costumes, he took some photos at Mom's insistence. It was clear he wasn't thrilled about his son parading around town dressed as a girl. We continued with our outing. Joe, too nervous to ring his doorbell, stayed out of sight while the rest of us surprised his family. We assured them that Joe looked radiant in his costume. His older brothers met us on the street and couldn't resist teasing him mercilessly. They lifted his jumper, yanked his pantyhose down, and pulled off his wig. Joe was deeply embarrassed, but Anne was kind and helped him fix his outfit. She gave us more lipstick and announced it was time to head to the school dance. Joe was rattled and wanted to return to Ryan's house to change. I had mixed feelings about entering the dance as a girl, but I was enjoying it too much to back out. The more people treated me as if I were truly a girl, the more I reveled in my new appearance. Despite my initial dread, I found myself convincing Joe to stay in his costume and join us at the dance. He eventually agreed. At the dance, a costume party, we had to show our school IDs at the door. The teachers giggled when they realized 3 of us were boys. We wandered around awkwardly. At first, few recognized us, but soon the girls began to figure out who we were. They seemed to enjoy our costumes, congratulating us on our bravery and creativity. I blushed as the girls complimented my dress. The boys were less kind, but none harassed us as much as Joe's brothers had. Suddenly, and asked me to dance. Nervously, I let her take my hand, and she led me to the dance floor. I struggled to dance in my heels, and found my clumsiness amusing. As the song ended and I started to lead us off the floor, and stopped me, saying, "Let's dance to this one too." I nodded and wrapped my arms around her. "Max, you seem pretty comfortable in my pumps," she teased. Unfazed, I replied, "No more than your brother. Ryan has always enjoyed dressing up as a girl," and explained. Seeing my surprised expression, she continued, "It started when we were young. We used to play dress-up together, and while I grew out of it, he didn't. Have you ever done this before?" "No," I answered. "How often does Ryan dress up?" "Not too often, just now and then. Once, for fun, we went shopping for dresses, and Mom got really upset. She said he could only do it on Halloween. That's why she was so thrilled when you guys agreed to dress up with him." A wave of confusion washed over me. I had seen transvestites on television, and now I wondered if I was one. I had enjoyed the evening so much that I hadn't considered the implications of what I was doing. Suddenly, I felt uncomfortable. "And, I didn't plan to do this before coming over. I'm not really into this," I said, sensing that my words might upset her. "Maybe we should leave." I started to pull away, and held on to me. "Max, don't go. I've had a crush on you since I met you last summer. I don't care how you're dressed. I like you for who you are." She tilted her face toward mine, preparing to kiss me. "Please don't," I said, my voice trembling. "Not like this." She tightened her grip. "Then stop me." She gently kissed me on the lips. Despite my initial hesitation, I found myself overwhelmed with the desire to kiss her back, not caring about my outfit. Our lips met again, and we kissed deeply. Some onlookers began to stare, unsure if it was 2 girls kissing. A gym teacher approached and pulled us apart. "Hey, you two, stop it. You can't do that here," he said. And I exchanged glances and burst into laughter. My mascara started to run, and I laughed so hard that tears streamed down my face. "It's okay, coach. I'm a boy. And I'm a girl," and added. The coach, clearly annoyed, said, "Really?" He shook his head and walked away. I took Anne's hand and said, "Let's get out of here." She nodded, and I called to Ryan and Joe, "You guys are on your own." We left the gym, hand in hand, and stopped on a bench in the schoolyard to share a few kisses. Our lips smeared each other with lipstick, but we didn't mind. Eventually, I found myself back at Anne's house, where I hesitantly changed back into my regular clothes, wondering if Anne would still feel the same about me. Fortunately, she did. She became my girlfriend for the rest of high school, and we continued dating at the University of Illinois. 2 years after graduation, we got married. Every Halloween, I dress up in some sort of female costume. Sometimes Anne dresses as a man, and other times, she matches her outfit to mine. Regardless, we always have a blast. On one occasion, we went out of town for the weekend. I met Anne at the airport, and we headed to New York City. When I returned to the hotel the next morning after my run, I found that all my male clothes had vanished, and had left them with the concierge, saying she had thrown them out. For the rest of the weekend, she made me wear women's clothing. We had a fantastic time, and even when she returned my male clothes, I chose to travel as a girl. Ryan, my brother-in-law, sometimes joins us for Halloween. He still enjoys dressing up as a girl and has even joined a cross-dressing club, indulging in it more frequently than I do. As far as I know, our friend Joe sticks to men's clothing. Since that Halloween, I've had some doubts about how normal this all is. However, I don't dwell on what it means to be a transvestite. With a loving wife who accepts me, those doubts rarely surface. No matter what, I always enjoy the transformation that comes with spending a few hours dressed as a girl.